What drives a man to glory or to ruin? George Armstrong Custer, the flamboyant cavalry officer, was hailed as a Civil War hero but met his end in one of history's most infamous military disasters. Was his fate at the Battle of the Little Bighorn the result of courage, recklessness, or both? Welcome to Native Legacy, where we explore the untold truths behind some of history's most iconic figures and events. In this video, we looked into the life, actions, and ultimate downfall of George Custer. Who was Custer before the fateful day at the Little Bighorn? A Civil War prodigy whose daring on the battlefield earned him fame and rapid promotion. But as an Indian fighter, his legacy grew darker, marked by decisions that cost lives, both native and his own. At the Little Bighorn, Custer's quest for glory collided with the reality of overwhelming native resistance. Ignoring warnings from his scouts, splitting his forces, and pursuing a risky strategy against a massive native encampment, his decision sealed the fate of his men. But was it all foolishness, or was there something heroic in his resolve? Throughout this video, we'll uncover the key events leading to Custer's last stand, from his triumphs in the Civil War to his contentious actions at Washita and the bitter dynamics within his own command. Witness the chaos of the battlefield as his men faced insurmountable odds, and consider the lasting impact of his choices on history. By the end, you'll decide, was Custer a bold hero, a reckless fool, or something in between? Stay with us as we unravel the complex legacy of a man whose ambition shaped his destiny. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep exploring history's most fascinating moments with Native Legacy. George Custer was a hero in the Civil War. His exploits as a cavalry officer in the Union Army gave him recognition and rapid advancement. However, his record as an Indian fighter was much less than heroic. In a previous battle against hostile Indians at the Battle of the Washita, Custer's 7th Cavalry was attacking a native village. After the battle was over and they stood victorious, a gun-ho major took 19 troopers and chased after the retreating Indians. Reportedly, Colonel Benteen urged Custer to ride in support of this troop. Custer refused. Those 20 men, unsupported, were quickly surrounded, and those who were not initially killed were tortured to death. Benteen was furious at Custer and wrote that he lost all respect for the man after that. This loss of respect would have dire consequences at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. 1 year later, Custer splits his forces. He sends Benteen around the flank with most of the supplies as they move slower. When he spots the Indian village on the Little Bighorn River, he splits up his command again. His Indian scouts urged him not to, and that the village was huge. Custer ignored them. The smart move would have been to send for Benteen and wait for reinforcements, then assault the village with their combined forces. He didn't. Custer wanted glory, and he hated Benteen for their disagreement 1 year prior. He sent a rider to Benteen, ordering him to join the attack, but he didn't wait. So, he instead sends Major Reno with around 40 men across the river out of sight. Once across, they charged into the village, sparking panic from the surprised Indian women and children. However, it became apparent very quickly that this was no small village. Indians began appearing in ever-increasing numbers, forcing Reno to dismount his men and retreat to the relative safety of the woods. Meanwhile, Custer, unaware of how Reno's attack was faring, was searching upriver for a crossing spot. Once found, he crossed with the rest of his command to try to cut off the women and children who were now fleeing Reno. He had used this tactic before to great success. However, this time Custer very quickly began to come up against ever-increasing numbers of Indians firing at him from the long grass. The village had awakened, and many hundreds of warriors who had been away from the village had now returned. Custer realized he had made a mistake. He retreated across the river and made for the nearest hill, now called Last Stand Hill. Previously, historians had thought the 7th Cav had been able to establish a solid defense and hold out for a while against the Indians before overwhelming numbers killed them. Historians now think otherwise. Battlefield archaeology, including location of bodies, now used Indian accounts, and shell casings paint a more chaotic picture than the glorious last stand we see in the history books. Custer's men were retreating at full speed to the hill, pursued hotly by thousands of Indians. The hill was overrun in minutes. The valiant last stand ended before it was even started. The surviving troopers panicked and ran. A string of bodies were found on what historians now view as a retreat, no, a rout. So what about Benteen? Well, when he received Custer's orders, he delayed, waiting for the slow-packed train to catch up. If Benteen had hurried, he may well have been in time to save Custer's command. On the other hand, he may have ended up joining Custer and being slaughtered by the Indians. By the time Benteen did finally move, Custer had been wiped out, and Benteen joined up with the remnants of Reno's command and barely beat off repeated Indian attacks the rest of the day. Altogether, around 30 bodies of U.S. troops were never found. Indian stories tell of the last group of soldiers, presumably the survivors of the rout, hiding in a gully. They had thrown down their weapons in their haste to get away, and the Indians mocked them as they grabbed, tortured, and killed them one by one. Moreover, Custer was a fool during the Little Bighorn. It should be remembered that it wasn't only Custer who died. There were 268 others with him, along with probably 100 or so Indians who also died. Nearly half of his command were immigrants who joined because it was a job, many of whom could barely speak English. Most were very young and had never fought. They certainly deserved a better fate than they received. Being tortured to death by Indians is one of the worst nightmares an American at that time could have. The sights described by the soldiers who found the bodies were about as awful a picture as could be painted. Over 200 naked bodies, virtually all mutilated beyond recognition, baking in the summer heat was enough to turn even experienced soldiers' stomachs. All because one leader wanted glory. It is a story that has played out over and over again throughout history and will play out in the future also. However, the story of George Armstrong Custer is a cautionary tale about leadership, hubris, and the consequences of underestimating an enemy. His decisions at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, splitting his forces, ignoring his scouts, and pursuing glory over caution, led to devastating losses for his command. Yet, this wasn't just the end of Custer, it was also a monumental moment for Native American warriors, whose unity and resolve showcased their incredible strength and resistance. Ultimately, the answer to whether Custer was a hero, a fool, or both lies with you, the viewer. His actions left an indelible mark on history, serving as a stark reminder of the cost of arrogance and the perils of underestimating one's adversaries. From this tragedy, we learn the importance of respect, listening to those who know the terrain, and the dangers of letting personal rivalries cloud judgment. As we reflect on the events of that fateful day, let us honor not only the fallen soldiers but also the native warriors who defended their way of life with unmatched courage. Thank you for watching Native Legacy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep exploring the stories that shaped America's past. See you in the next video. Thanks.